My name is Naomi Carter. I'm 33 years old, and until that Sunday evening, I believed I understood my family. Not loved them blindly, not trusted them fully, but understood them well enough to survive them. I work as a financial compliance analyst, which is a polite way of saying I spend my days making sure powerful people don't pretend numbers mean something they don't. My job trained me to notice patterns, omissions, and quiet manipulations. Ironically, it didn't prepare me for my own dining room. I'm not dramatic. I don't cry easily. I plan everything twice and assume people will disappoint me once. I drink coffee without sugar, hate surprises, and keep my laptop password protected not because I'm secretive, but because I like control. Derek, my husband, says I live like someone who learned early that safety is temporary. He's not wrong. The night everything unraveled was Sunday dinner at my parents' house, the kind of dinner that pretends to be about family but is really about performance. Everyone plays their role. Everyone keeps score. I arrived 10 minutes late, which in my family counts as a moral failure. My mother noticed immediately. "Naomi," she said, stretching my name the way she does when she's already disappointed. "You could have called." "I was finishing work," I replied, slipping off my shoes by the door. My father barely looked up from the TV. That was his thing, presence without engagement. My younger brother Evan was already there, sprawled across a chair like he owned the house instead of borrowing money to survive it. And then there was Derek. He squeezed my hand as we sat down. Quiet support. He always knew when to say nothing. Dinner started politely enough. My mother complained about grocery prices. My father complained about taxes. Evan complained about his boss, his rent, his life, like the universe personally wronged him every morning. I stayed quiet. That's what I do best. At some point, Evan turned toward Derek with a smirk that made my shoulders tense. "So," he said, tapping his glass with his fork, "still working crazy hours, man." Derek nodded. "Comes with the territory. And it pays well, right?" Evan pressed. I looked up. "Why do you care?" He shrugged. "Just curious. You two are always so comfortable." My mother jumped in too fast. "Your brother doesn't mean anything by it." But Evan was already leaning forward. "I mean, Naomi works nonstop. Derek's always busy. Must be nice not having to worry about money." Derek glanced at me. I shook my head slightly. "Don't engage." Halfway through dinner, my phone buzzed with a notification from work. A report deadline I'd forgotten to send. I hesitated, then reached into my bag. "I just need 5 minutes," I said, already opening my laptop at the edge of the table. "Then I'm done." Evan's eyes followed the movement like a cat spotting a laser. "You brought your laptop to dinner?" he laughed. "Wow." "I didn't plan to," I said. "It's quick." My mother sighed. "Naomi, one meal without work." I said 5 minutes. That's when Evan stood up. I didn't register it fast enough. He moved casually, confidently, like someone who had never been told no in his life. Before I could react, he grabbed my laptop and pulled it toward himself. "Evan," I said sharply, standing up. "Give that back." "Relax," he laughed. "I'm not stealing FBI secrets." "You don't know what's on there," I said, my voice controlled but tight. He clicked anyway. My father finally looked over. "Evan, knock it off." But it was already too late. Evan froze. Not confused. Not amused. Interested. "Oh," he said slowly. "Oh, wow." My stomach dropped. "Everyone needs to see this," he announced. I reached for the laptop, but he turned it around, angling the screen toward the table like he was revealing a magic trick. "Derek makes that much," he said loudly. "Are you kidding me?" The room went silent. My mother leaned forward. My father's jaw tightened. Derek didn't move at all. Evan grinned. "No wonder you two don't help anyone. Must be nice making 6 figures and acting broke." I took the laptop from his hands carefully, deliberately, like I was removing something dangerous. "That information wasn't for you," I said calmly. My father spoke first. "Is it true?" Not "what is that?" Not "why was he looking?" Just "is it true?" My mother's voice trembled. "Naomi, all this time, you never said anything." Evan leaned back, satisfied. "Guess we know where everyone stands now." I closed the laptop, and in that moment, something inside me shifted. Not anger. Clarity. I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I didn't explain. That's the part people never understand later, why I stayed quiet. I stayed quiet because arguing would have meant pretending this was confusion instead of exposure. And it wasn't confusion. It was revelation. I left my parents' house that night without dessert, without goodbyes, without slamming the door. I hugged my mother because she leaned in first, stiff and unsure, like she was hugging a stranger who disappointed her. My father nodded once. Evan smirked. Derek said nothing until we were in the car. "You okay?" he asked gently, hand steady on the wheel. I watched the streetlights blur past. "I will be." That wasn't a promise. It was a decision forming. At home, I didn't turn on the TV. I didn't check my phone. I stood in the kitchen, staring at the dark reflection of myself in the microwave door, trying to pinpoint when I'd crossed the invisible line from daughter to asset. Derek poured me a glass of water and leaned against the counter. "They didn't even ask why Evan had your laptop." "No," I said quietly. "They didn't." That was the loudest part. I slept badly. Not because of guilt, but because my brain kept replaying old moments with new meaning. My mother's stories about stress. My father's comments about responsibility. Evan's jokes that always seemed to land on money. By morning, the truth was undeniable. I hadn't been hiding anything. I had been holding everything together. I grew up in a house where asking for help was disguised as expectation. My parents never demanded money outright. They framed it as family duty, as being there for each other. And I bought into it early. After college, when I landed my first stable job, my mother called crying about a credit card bill she couldn't manage. I paid it. One time, she said. Just until things stabilized. They never fully did. My father had a medical deductible he wasn't prepared for. I covered it. Evan lost a job. Then another. Rent fell behind. My mother would call on his behalf, voice soft and worried. "He's trying, Naomi." And I would sigh and say, "How much?" Derek never pressured me. He noticed, though. The way my shoulders tightened when my phone rang late. The way my budget spreadsheets grew more complex every year. Here's the thing, Evan didn't know when he opened my laptop. That number he announced so proudly, it wasn't just income. It was combined household projections, long-term planning, investments, savings, numbers that existed because Derek and I lived well below our means. No luxury cars, no upgrades, no impulse spending, because someone always needed something. And I made it efficient, quiet, automatic. I didn't want gratitude. I wanted peace. Instead, I got accusation. At 6:43 a.m., my phone started vibrating. Mom, Dad, Evan. I didn't answer. Then a message from my mother. "We need to talk." This hurt a lot. I stared at the screen. Not Evan crossed a line. No, we shouldn't have reacted that way. Just this hurt. At 7:12 a.m., Evan texted. "Didn't know money was such a big secret. Guess we see who you really are." That was when something settled in my chest. I wasn't angry anymore. I was done performing. By noon, I'd made a decision. I opened my laptop again, but this time, not at a dinner table. I logged into our accounts slowly, deliberately, like I was reviewing evidence. My mother's monthly support transfer. Scheduled. Reliable. Gone. My father's supplemental medical payments. Cancelled. The emergency fund I kept, just in case Evan needed help again. Closed. Each click felt like releasing a breath I'd been holding for years. Derek watched quietly. "You don't owe them an explanation." "I owe myself honesty," I said. At 1:30 p.m., my phone rang again. This time it was my father. I answered. "What's going on?" he asked, voice clipped. "Your mother says payments didn't go through." "They weren't supposed to," I replied calmly. Silence. "You can't just stop," he said finally. "That's not how family works." I closed my eyes. Then family shouldn't publicly shame people for money they didn't earn. Another pause. "We'll talk tonight," he said. "Yes," I agreed. "We will." By evening, I felt strangely light. Not relieved. Not free. Just clear. Derek squeezed my hand as we got into the car. "Whatever happens," he said, "you're not wrong." I nodded. I wasn't wrong. I was finally awake. I arrived at my parents' house just before 7. Same driveway. Same porch light flickering like it always had. But I wasn't the same woman walking up those steps. I didn't bring wine. I didn't bring dessert. I brought my laptop. My mother opened the door before I could knock. Her eyes were red, but her posture was defensive. "You could have warned us," she said immediately. "I did," I replied. "I said we'd talk." My father was already at the table, arms crossed, expression set. Evan leaned against the counter, phone in hand, pretending he wasn't watching me closely. Derek stayed home. This was mine. I sat down, opened my laptop, and didn't wait for permission. "You wanted to discuss help," I said calmly. "So let's be specific." I turned the screen toward them. Rows. Dates. Amounts. Notes. 3 years of payments. My mother leaned forward first. "What is all that?" "That," I said, "is every transfer, bill, and emergency I've covered." Evan laughed once, sharp and uncomfortable. "You really brought spreadsheets." "You brought my finances to the table," I replied. "I'm finishing the conversation you started." My father adjusted in his chair. His eyes moved slowly across the screen. "That's your mother's car," he said quietly. "Yes." "And my deductible." "Yes." My mother's hand went to her mouth. "That can't be right," she whispered. "It is." Evan scoffed. "Okay, but that doesn't mean you get to act like a victim. You still have more than enough." I looked at him steadily. "This isn't about what I have. It's about what you assumed." My mother's voice cracked. "We didn't know you were doing all this." I nodded. "I know." My father leaned back. "Family doesn't keep score." "No," I said. "Family doesn't accuse someone of holding out while quietly taking their support." Silence. Evan shifted. "You're blowing this out of proportion. You read my private information out loud," I said evenly. "And when they believed you, you didn't correct them." He shrugged. "I was joking." "No," I said. "You were testing boundaries." My mother wiped her eyes. "So what now?" "You punish us." I shook my head. "I correct the system." I closed the laptop halfway, not to hide it, but to signal finality. "There will be no more automatic payments," I said. "No more assumptions. No more access to my financial life." My father's jaw tightened. "You think you're better than us now?" I met his gaze calmly. "I think I'm done being invisible." Evan crossed his arms. "So if Mom's car breaks down, she handles it. And if Dad's bills, he calls his insurance. Or he asks me, respectfully." My mother's voice trembled. "But what if we need you?" I softened just slightly. "Then you ask. And I decide. Like an adult. That hurt them." I could see it. Because boundaries feel like rejection to people who benefit from your silence. Evan laughed again, but it sounded forced. "Wow. Guess money really changes people." I stood up. "No," I said quietly. "Being exposed changes people. Being used wakes them up." I packed up my laptop. "This isn't a punishment," I added. "It's sustainability." No one stopped me as I walked out. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was abandoning my family. I felt like I was finally standing on solid ground. The fallout didn't explode. It seeped. The next morning, my phone was quiet in a way that felt deliberate. No calls. No texts. Just a heavy, watchful silence. By noon it broke. My mother called first. I let it ring. Then my father. I declined. Then Evan, 3 times in a row. I muted the family group chat and went to work. That day, I did my job like nothing had changed. I analyzed reports, flagged inconsistencies, corrected errors. Nobody in the office knew that I dismantled a system my family had relied on for years. That was the strangest part. The world kept turning. At 4:17 p.m., a voicemail from my mother slipped through. Her voice was softer than usual. "Careful. Naomi, I don't understand why you're doing this. We've always been a family. You're acting like we took advantage of you, and that hurts. Call me." I stared at the transcript. "That hurts. Not we're sorry. Not Evan crossed a line. Just this hurts." At 6:03 p.m., Evan messaged. "Dad's pissed. Mom's crying. Hope you're proud of yourself." I didn't respond. Because here's the truth I'd never said out loud before. I had always been the emotional regulator in that family. When things went wrong, I smoothed them. When people panicked, I fixed things. When bills stacked up, I paid them. And now that I wasn't, they had to feel it. That night, Derek asked if I was okay. I think so, I said honestly. It's just quiet. He nodded. Quiet can be withdrawal. That hit harder than I expected. 2 days passed. Then my father called again. I answered this time. You've made your point, he said without greeting. We don't need a lesson. I didn't teach one, I replied. I stopped a habit. You embarrassed us, he said. I took a breath. Evan embarrassed me. You sided with him. Silence. We raised you better than this, he said finally. No, I replied calmly. You raised me to be responsible. I just stopped being responsible for everyone else. He hung up. That night, Evan posted something vague on social media about fake loyalty and people who forget where they came from. I didn't look at the comments, because I knew what he was doing. Without access, he had no leverage. A week later, my mother showed up at my door. No warning. No call. She looked smaller than I remembered. I just want to talk, she said, standing on the threshold like she wasn't sure she was welcome. I let her in. She sat on the couch, hands folded tight. I didn't know you were paying all those bills. I know, I said. If I had, you still would have let it continue, I said gently. Because it worked. Her eyes filled. We needed you. I nodded. And I needed to not be needed like that. She didn't argue. That was new. When she left, I felt something shift again. Not reconciliation. Recognition. Over the next 2 weeks, small changes rippled outward. My father called his insurance himself. Loudly. Repeatedly. My mother complained about her car but didn't ask me to fix it. Evan went quiet. No jokes. No digs. No requests. And something unexpected happened. My anxiety dropped. I slept better. My shoulders stopped living up by my ears. Because for the first time in years, my money and my energy stayed where I put it. Change didn't arrive with apologies. It arrived with inconvenience. That's how I knew it was real. 2 weeks after I stopped the payments, my mother called. Not crying, not dramatic, just tired. I had to refinance the car, she said, like she was admitting a personal failure. I waited. It's not ideal, she continued. The interest rate is higher. I'm sorry it's stressful, I replied. She hesitated. You're not going to offer to help? There it was. The old rhythm, reaching for what used to be automatic. No, I said calmly. I'm not. The silence on the other end felt heavier than any argument we'd ever had. I figured, she said finally. I just thought I'd ask. That's okay, I said. And I meant it. After we hung up, my hands were shaking, not from guilt, but from adrenaline. I'd just done something radical in my family. I said no, and the world didn't end. A few days later, my father texted. Not a call. A text. Insurance denied part of the claim. I'm handling it. No request. No pressure. Just information. I replied with a single word. Okay. That word felt powerful in a way I didn't expect. Evan was the last to surface. He didn't call. He didn't text. He showed up at my workplace. I saw him through the glass doors of the lobby while I was finishing a meeting. He stood there awkwardly, hands in his pockets. No confidence, no performance. When I stepped outside, he looked relieved and irritated at the same time. So, he said, this is really how it's going to be? Yes, I replied. He scoffed. You know you could help. You just don't want to. I tilted my head slightly. That's not true. I don't want to help like before. He frowned. What does that even mean? It means, I said evenly, I'm not your backup plan. I'm not the safety net you fall into without thinking. He crossed his arms. Family helps family. Family doesn't humiliate people to feel powerful, I said. That landed. He looked away. I didn't mean it like that. But you didn't stop it either, I replied. For the first time since Sunday dinner, Evan looked uncertain. I just thought, he said slowly, if you're doing that well, then what? I asked. Then it wouldn't hurt you, he finished. I nodded. It did. Not financially. Personally. He didn't apologize. But he didn't argue either. Weeks passed. Amber, my older cousin, who'd always hovered quietly in the background, called one night. I heard things are different, she said carefully. They are, I replied. I just wanted to say, she continued, I didn't know how much pressure you were under. No one ever talks about that part. I closed my eyes. Thank you. That conversation stayed with me. Because accountability doesn't always come from the people who hurt you most. Sometimes it comes from the ones who finally see clearly. By the end of the month, the family dynamic had shifted. Dinner invitations became optional instead of expected. Conversations stopped revolving around money. No one joked about my job anymore. And the most telling change, no one touched my things. My laptop stayed where I put it. My boundaries stayed intact. One night, Derek and I sat on the couch reviewing our finances, calmly, normally, without dread. You know, he said, this is the first time I've seen you breathe while looking at numbers. I laughed softly. I didn't realize I'd been holding my breath. He reached for my hand. You didn't abandon them. I know, I said. I just stopped rescuing them. That distinction mattered, because rescuing had cost me peace. Helping, real helping, required consent, respect, and limits. And for the first time, those limits were mine. It's been 6 months since that dinner. 6 months since my brother opened my laptop, read a number he didn't understand, and decided it meant I owed everyone more. What he exposed wasn't wealth. It was a misunderstanding that had been festering for years. Life didn't magically improve overnight after I set boundaries. There were still awkward silences, still strained conversations, still moments when I questioned myself. But something fundamental changed. I stopped feeling responsible for everyone else's comfort. The first holiday after everything happened was Thanksgiving. I almost didn't go. Derek noticed me hesitating with my coat in hand. You don't have to, he said gently. I want to, I replied. Just differently. At my parents' house, the table looked the same. The food smelled the same. But the energy had shifted. No one commented on what Derek did for a living. No one asked about bonuses or promotions. No one made jokes about who's paying. Evan showed up late. He didn't make a scene. He didn't touch my things. He nodded at me just once. It wasn't an apology, but it was respect. After dinner, my mother pulled me aside in the kitchen. Her voice was quieter than I remembered. I didn't realize how much we leaned on you, she said. I thought you were okay with it. I looked at her honestly. I didn't know how to say no. She nodded slowly. I should have noticed. That wasn't an apology either, but it was accountability. Later that night, my father stood beside me on the porch. You're different, he said. I am, I agreed. He cleared his throat. You're steadier. I almost smiled. What he meant was I wasn't bending anymore. And I didn't need him to say more. Evan approached as we were leaving. Hey, he said awkwardly. I shouldn't have looked at your screen. I waited. And I shouldn't have said anything out loud, he added. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't emotional. But it was the closest thing to an apology he'd ever given. I accept that, I said. Not forgiveness. Acceptance. On the drive home, Derek reached for my hand. You know, he said. If he hadn't done that, you might still be carrying all of this. I nodded. That was the part that took time to understand. The violation hurt. The humiliation stung. But it also exposed something I could no longer ignore. I wasn't holding out. I was holding everything up. And when people realized how much weight I'd been carrying, they didn't rush to take it from me. They asked why I wasn't lifting more. That's the moment you have to choose. Between being loved for what you give, or respected for who you are. I chose respect. Today, my finances are boring again, and that's a gift. No emergency transfers. No quiet rescues. No silent resentment. When I help now, it's discussed. Agreed upon. Appreciated. When I don't explain. And my relationship with my family? It's smaller, but it's real. Here's what I've learned. If someone invades your privacy to expose you, they're not curious, they're testing control. If people only notice your value when they see your numbers, they never valued you. And if helping your family costs you your peace, it's no longer help, it's self-erasure. My brother thought opening my laptop would shame me. Instead, it freed me. Because once the truth was out, I could finally stop pretending everything was fine. And for the first time in my adult life, love doesn't come with a price tag. It comes with boundaries. And those are priceless.